The History of India Part 1. India's history is the story of a land whose natural wealth, fertile plains, and strategic location drew people, ideas, and empires across millennia. A story that begins not with palaces and temples, but with the quiet persistence of early humans walking its valleys and forests. In prehistoric times, long before written language, stone tools and fossil remains testify to human habitation stretching back hundreds of thousands of years, with some sites like Atarampakam in Tamil Nadu pushing the date of human presence to nearly 1.5 million years ago. These early inhabitants lived by hunting and gathering, adapting to the subcontinent's diverse landscapes, the icy Himalayan foothills, the thick forests of the Vindhyas, the floodplains of the Ganges, and the coastal stretches of the Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal. Caves like those at Bhimbetka preserve their painted memories, scenes of deer hunts, ritual dances, and human figures intertwined with animals, revealing not just survival, but an emerging symbolic mind that could capture meaning in image and colored out around 7000 BCE. The first signs of farming communities appeared in the northwest, most famously at Mehrgarh in what is now Baluchistan. Here, people cultivated wheat, barley, and dates, herded cattle, sheep, and goats, and began to make pottery to store surplus grain. These early farmers still hunted wild game, but gradually built permanent mud brick houses and developed craft traditions such as bead-making and weaving. Over centuries, agricultural life spread across the subcontinent, each region adapting its crops to local conditions. Rice cultivation became prominent in the Ganges Valley, millets in the Deccan Plateau, and pulses in drier areas. By around 2600 BC, these foundations gave rise to one of the world's first great urban civilizations, the Indus Valley Civilization, also called the Harappan Civilization after one of its key sites. Stretching across what is now Pakistan and northwestern India, it encompassed dozens of cities and hundreds of towns and villages, linked by trade, shared cultural practices, and remarkably consistent urban planning. Cities like Mohenjo, Harappa Dolafira, Lotel, and Kalibangan were laid out on grid patterns, with main streets intersecting at right angles, standardized baked brick construction, covered drains, and public wells, revealing an attention to hygiene unmatched in the ancient world. Granaries stored surplus grain, indicating centralized collection and redistribution. And dockyards such as Lothals connected the Harappans to maritime trade with Mesopotamia, the Persian Gulf, and possibly even East Africa. Harappan artisans produced fine pottery, intricate bead jewelry, shell ornaments, and expertly crafted tools from copper and bronze. Their distinctive seals, carved with animals and inscribed with symbols of an undeciphered script, hint at administrative and possibly religious uses. Depictions of horned deities, tree worship, and female figurines suggest fertility cults and proto-Shiva imagery. Though without written records, much remains conjectural. Despite their sophistication, around 1900 BCE, the Harappan cities began to decline, likely due to shifting river systems, like the drying of the Swati changes in monsoon patterns and internal socioeconomic stresses. Urban centers were abandoned, and people dispersed into smaller rural settlements, carrying aspects of Harappan culture into later regional traditions. Into this changing landscape came Indo-Aryan-speaking peoples from Central Asia, whose gradual migration and interaction with local populations marked the beginning of the Vedic Age. 1500-600 BC. Their sacred hymns, memorized and transmitted orally, were composed in Sanskrit and collected in the Rig Veda, the oldest of the Vedas, which praises deities such as Indra, god of storms and war, Agni, the fire god, and Varuna, guardian of cosmic order. Society in the early Vedic period was largely pastoral. organized into clans under chiefs, called rujas, with wealth measured in cattle. Ritual sacrifices yajanas were central to religious life, performed by Brahmin priests to maintain harmony between gods and humans. Over time, Indo-Aryan society spread eastward into the fertile Ganges plain, clearing forests with iron tools, and shifting from a pastoral to an agrarian economy. This later Vedic period saw the crystallization of the fourfold Varna system: Brahmins priests, Kshatriyas warriors, Vaishyas traders, and Shudras laborers, which over centuries became the complex caste hierarchy of Indian society. Political organization devolved into larger kingdoms and oligarchic republics, the Mahayanopadas, 16 of which dominated northern India by the 6th century BCE. Urbanization returned, with bustling towns serving as centers of trade, crafts, and administration. It was in this milieu that two transformative religious movements emerged. Jainism, taught by Mahavira, emphasized the path of renunciation, strict nonviolence, ahimsa, truthfulness, and ascetic discipline, attracting followers among merchants and urban dwellers. Buddhism, founded by Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, offered a middle path between indulgence and asceticism, teaching that suffering arose from desire and could be overcome through ethical conduct, meditation, and wisdom. Both traditions challenged the ritualism of the Vedic religion, promoted ethical universality, and spread far beyond India's borders in the centuries to come. Among the Mahayanapadas, Magadha emerged as the most powerful, benefiting from fertile lands, control of the Ganges trade routes, and deposits of iron ore. Under the Nanda dynasty, it became a centralized and wealthy state. But in 321 BCE, it fell to Chandragupta Maurya, who, guided by the political strategist Chanakya, founded the Maurya Empire. From his capital at Pataliputra, modern Patna, expanded his dominion over most of northern India, defeating the successors of Alexander the Great in the northwest and establishing diplomatic relations with the Seleucid Empire. His grandson Ashoka the Great inherited this vast realm and extended it further through conquest. But after the bloody Kalinga War, c. 261 BCE, he renounced aggressive expansion and embraced Buddhism. Ashoka's reign is one of the most remarkable. In ancient history, he promoted nonviolence, religious tolerance, and the welfare of his subjects, building roads, hospitals, rest houses, and irrigation works. He convened Buddhist councils, sent missionaries as far as Sri Lanka and Central Asia, and inscribed his principles on rocks and pillars in local languages, making them accessible to the common people. These edicts, spread across the subcontinent, remain key historical sources for the period after Ashoka's death. The Maurya Empire gradually weakened, fragmenting into regional kingdoms. Over the following centuries, India became a crossroads for cultural exchange as new powers arose: the Shungas, Satavahanas, and Indo-Greeks, followed by the Kushan Empire under rulers like Kanishka, who patronized Mahayana Buddhism and presided over a flourishing of Gandhara art that blended Indian and Greco-Roman elements. Trade networks connected India to the Roman Empire, Southeast Asia, and China, with ports on both coasts serving as hubs for spices, textiles, gems, and ivory. By the early 4th century CE, the Gupta dynasty established control over much of northern India, initiating what is often called the Golden Age of ancient India, under rulers like Chandragupta I, Samudragupta, and Chandragupta II. The empire enjoyed political stability, economic prosperity, and cultural brilliance. Sanskrit literature flourished. Kalidasa composed timeless dramas and poetry. The Purana were compiled, and scholarly centers like Nalanda attracted students from across Asia. In science, Aryabhata calculated the value of pi and proposed that the Earth rotated on its axis, while advances in mathematics included the concept of zero and the decimal system. In medicine, Charaka and Sushruta's treatises detailed surgical techniques, herbal remedies, and diagnostic methods. Gupta art and architecture, exemplified by the Ajanta cave paintings and intricate temple carvings, reflected refined aesthetics and devotional themes. Hinduism reached its classical form, integrating Vedic ritual, epic mythology, and devotional worship of deities like Vishnu, Shiva, and Devi.